weekend racing. It's time to recap it. And who better to do it than Michael and Magic? Two bros/pros who cover the highs and lows of racing around the globe on every one of their shows. Real fans look forward to these guys and their last stunts, cause they know they're not talking out of their royal ascot. What they say makes sense. So ladies and gents, sit back and relax as Blinkers Off presents The Magic Mike Show, where you hear the experts speak. The Magic Mike Show. Tune into the show every week. The Magic Mike Show. You can trust the show is the bomb because it's being brought to you by RacingDudes.com.
What's up, everybody? I'm Tiz the Magician. I'm Magic.
And I'm Mike.
And this is the Magic Mike Show.
Huzzah!
Oh, God, I am so happy, Mr. Samich. I'm so happy. I'm just now getting my voice back. The sun is out. The birds are chirping. It's 2021. God damn, this feels like a good start to the year. How you doing?
Yeah, he dug in, man. I mean, for everyone who doesn't know, Tiz the Magician won over the weekend, and Magic was very excited about it. Man, did that horse dig in down the stretch to hold off the favorite and be able to get the job done. Now they're talking stakes race, which is exciting, man. I like it.
My God, that's going to be the best thing that I saw. There's no way it's not the best thing that I saw. I was watching it in the living room, or just if you're watching live. I was right behind those double doors right there, and I was watching on the big screen. And
that's where the living room is?
Yeah, that's right through there.
Wow, yeah. I wouldn't have guessed that. All right, learn new things. All right.
Someday I'll take everybody on a virtual tour of the house.
There we go, Cribs Magic style.
There you go. Yeah. But no, so I was watching right there, and I have two dogs. One of them loves to watch horse racing, so he sat on my lap. I don't have a son yet, so this is he sat on my lap, and we're about a foot away from the TV, and he did not like it when Tiz the Magician dug in, because that's when Daddy lost his freaking mind. So because I saw it, and Frank Miramati, they called it. He said, well, Paladar is the 8-5 favorite, who I thought was going to win the race even before it started. And then he said, well, Paladar to the lead at the quarter pole. And then all of a sudden I just see Tiz, as they straightened out, Tiz goes, I'm gonna use my one, Tiz goes, fuck you guys, and just dug in, and he ended up pulling away, and he wins by 3/4 of a length. San Pasqual Stakes hopefully he'll be next, because most of the horses that were in that are either going to the Saudi Cup, Pegasus Cup, or from the San Antonio, are coming from that. So, it looks like a pretty good setup for him. Oh my God. I was screaming. I was squirming all over the place. My dogs hated me. I loved it.
Yeah, it was great. It was a lot of fun to be root that horse home, because that is not, I did not expect him to dig in like that. So it's great to see that heart. Great to see him get the job done. Good win for my racehorse. Good win for Tiz the Magician. I'm excited to see that stakes race next. I'm hoping we're going Pegasus. Let's just go big. Go big or go home with this horse. Why not just take a shot? But we'll see where we end up. Best thing I saw today. This is the hardest thing that I've had to do all day, to be honest with you. I have 6 things that could be the best thing I saw today. So I'm going to cheat and use 2. One will be quick. It's non-horse racing.
We got time, dude. Just take it. Nobody wants to hear us talk about life is good for half an hour. Take all the time you want. I'm
actually going to save one for Thursday, because it will also apply to Thursday. So the first one is there was a Blues training camp open up today. So I'm excited. Hockey is back. We are 2 weeks away from the drop of the puck. I'm not going to go in too much on this one, because obviously it's a horse racing podcast. But I'm excited about this team. We're still good. We should be able to compete for a cup. Last year was so wonky with that bubble thing that it'll be interesting to see how it comes back. But I'm excited to have hockey back. We were less than 2 weeks from that. So seeing all the interviews, seeing the pictures from training camp got me jacked up. So looking forward to that. But the best thing I saw today, yeah, well, you guys are going to suck again. The best thing I saw today, by far, was a post on Twitter from my buddy Chris Griffin, who, if you don't know, is the voice of Sam Houston Race Park, and they are going to be back on Friday. So Sam Houston kicking off on this Friday. Magic, plug your phone in. We're also doing the Pick 4 on Saturday. I'll explain why in a second. First off, Sam Houston is a track you should be playing, period. 12% takeout, daily double, Pick 3, Pick 4, Pick 5. No other track in the country does that. No other one. So I hype the crap out of Sam Houston. I'll have a bunch of tickets I throw up for free on Twitter, so make sure you're following along there. We did it last year. We literally blew Magic's phone to the point where he lost his battery one night because we had so many mentions going on playing Sam Houston. We'll probably have some special happy hour shows late night, little Mike and Magic after dark to play a little Sam Houston, do a Pick 4 live. Yeah, we got the logo for it. Why not go for it? So it's gonna be a good time. But the best thing I saw was in this video. I'm just going to talk about Sam Houston Park here for 10 minutes. The best thing I saw is in this video, they had a little bit of an issue, and this was interesting. So in the Space 6, which is their jackpot Pick 6, There was a little bit of a problem because they had 2 horses dead heat, and one person had both of those horses on his ticket. So by rule, he does not get the jackpot because there are 2 unique winning combinations, which is a really brutal way to not get the jackpot when you are the only 2 combinations, but they're on the same ticket. It's not technically 1 winning ticket because it is 2 winning tickets. So they went to court over this. Eventually, the Sam Houston or the Oklahoma Gaming Board, I'm not sure which, won. So there's a pick 6 carryover going to Friday, which is going to be mandatory payout on Saturday night, which is why we got to do the late pick 4 there, so we can provide the late pick 4 opening night at Sam Houston, or second night at Sam Houston, with a mandatory pick 6. So I am excited. I'm excited how they're doing this, that they're not making this a ridiculous carryover to the end of the season, that they're just going opening weekend and saying we're making it happen. I love their takeout. I love the track. And the pools are going to be supersized this year because they are owned by Penn National, who Barstool is now part of. And they are going to make sure that they churn these pools. So I think you're going to have huge pools with low takeout, predictable long shots. I cannot wait for Sam Houston to get started on Friday.
I honestly forgot that was. I remember that it happened. I forgot that it was Sam Houston that one person to.
I think it was actually Remington.
Was it Remington? Okay.
I think it was Remington quarter horses that it actually happened in, but it carried over to the Sam Houston meet because it's all the same cycle. Very weird. Because they didn't have a pick 6 at Remington for a while this year either, because when they were trying to settle this.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes a little bit of sense. I'm excited too. I know I give it a lot of shit or seem a little down on it, but I am excited that Sam Houston's back. I was making notes. I didn't realize that they were coming back. I thought we had one more week, so I'm making some notes. We'll definitely do the podcast, the Pick 4 show Thursday. We'll do that for Sam Houston for Friday night. For Saturday night. And then, our usual Friday Sam Houston fun. We'll make sure we do something, and I'll put something up on the website. So check out racenews.com. Guys, if you're new to this show, last year, Sam Houston was really good to us, really good to our fans. Last couple of years, I should say. As we were starting to get clout with our show, Sam Houston reached out and they wanted to work with us because they saw the impact that our show, and specifically Mike Somich, when he posts his tickets online, everybody just flocks and plays Sam Houston. So we're more than happy to support them because they've been very good to us and very good to our fans. A bunch of people have gotten gear and memorabilia and stuff in the past. So we'll see if we can get something going like that again. I'm excited with you. I'm feeling it.
I can't wait, man. One of the coolest things about this racetrack, it's a fairly fair racetrack, little speed favoring on the dirt side. The turf is wide open generally, but you have a strong set of jockeys who ride smart. So you have a pretty good group of jockeys from a riding perspective. A couple newcomers this year that are injected into it too. So the colony's getting a little bit better this year at Sam Houston. And it is a quality racetrack from that perspective. I also love the fact, and this is for me, just because I'm a degenerate gambler, I love the fact that it's at night. So the pick 4 usually kicks off around 10 o'clock Eastern. So usually at night, the only option you have is Los Alamitos if you're looking at it. And really, that's not thoroughbreds. It's the 4.5 furlong sprints and then quarter horses. Sam Houston gives you full thoroughbred coverage. And since it's in Houston, you're in the central time zone. So it's a later start, but it's still a 10 o'clock start for me out here in the East Coast playing the pick 4. West Coast has a 7 o'clock start, but it's good quality thoroughbred racing at night, Friday, Saturday. You got to check out Sam Houston. You got to check it out.
Well, if you're a loyal listener to this show and you're new, you're definitely going to check it out because we're going to bomb the shit out of you with our Sam Houston coverage. So get ready to feel like my phone.
To be clear, the reason this all started is because they were the first track to really reduce takeout heavily. And we wanted to make sure we rewarded them. Like I said, they're the only track that's 12% across the board on multi-race wagers. So daily doubles, pick 3s, pick 4s, pick 5s, all 12%. And that's industry leading in 4 of the 5 categories. The pick 5, you now had a couple people undercut them. But other than that, man, it's crazy. And yes, Steve Asmussen and I have a nice little rumble going on at Sam Houston because he is one of the better trainers there. And it's the, do you use Asmussen or not in a lot of cases? Because he's going to get bet hard. But if you beat Steve Asmussen twice in a pick 4 sequence, it can pay. And you can scoop a pick 5 if you beat him twice, which is why it's a lot of fun to play the track if you like to fade Steve Asmussen.
Kind of sounds like Steve Asmussen to Sam Houston is Bob Baffert to Santa Anita and Del Mar. And that segues into perfectly what we're going to talk about on today's show. We're going to look at the Kentucky Derby, Kentucky Oaks preps from this weekend, including a couple of Bob Baffert horses that, surprise, surprise, they won a freaking prep race. We're also going to look at tickets. At our tickets from Gulfstream Park Saturday. Mr. Zamich, you had the winning ticket that you gave out on the show. Congratulations to you.
Thank you, sir.
It didn't pay, a ton, but it was definitely a profit. You got it, with probably 3-4 times ROI easily out of it for what you.
$276 for $54.
Wow, I was almost right on with that. I am never good at math, and I almost got that. Wow. I'm going to chalk that up as another win for Magic. Let's get into today's show,
Take them
Mike.
where you can get them, buddy.
Riders up. All right, let's see here. Let's do Gulfstream first.
All right,
let's
cool.
let's do the fun stuff. I don't want to fucking talk about. This is Aaron's fault, because if you guys watch Blinkers Off, Aaron has officially just given up trying to filter what's happened, like what he says or writes about when it comes to Bob Baffert, and it's really worn off on me a lot quicker than I thought it would, because I'm like, well, if my boss doesn't care, why the hell do I care? So
Get the freedom now to just go.
yeah, and that's one of those things that once you ring that bell, it can't be unrung. So
Yep.
it's gonna be a little fun. All right, let's where we at? Race 8. Yeah, okay. 3, 2. All right, the first race we're going to take a look at from Gulfstream Park this past Saturday, January 2nd, the race that kicked off the late pick 4 show that we did, race 8 on the card. You had 12 males, 3 and up, plus an also eligible enter to go a mile and a 16th on the turf course at Gulfstream Park. And the winner ends up being all the way out in the 12, the Win From Within, which was a horse that I think was the very first one that you talked about on our show. Todd Pletcher had 2 entries here. I love the one. I love the 9, Prayer Book, who was drawn a little bit inside of him. And I said, if Win From Within was just a few posts in, man, I would definitely play him. Didn't matter about the post draw, because Luis Saez guns him out, gets him to the lead, which is the only way this horse is going to win. You had this horse as the very first one that you talked about, so please, floor is all yours.
Yeah, nice to get a top pick winner here. This is one of those that you think that they maybe have had pretty high expectations for early on in its career, just because of who it had faced in those maiden special weights. You see Garoppolo, Reinvestment Risk, Olympico, all from all the 2 races at Belmont and Saratoga that this horse ran in when it was on the dirt. Crosses over to the turf and then unfortunately gets rained off at Saratoga. Shows speed in all 3 races, but quits. They put him into the with anticipation on the turf. So they were trying to get this horse turf sprinting as a maiden, which we talked about on the show. That was one of the main reasons I went to this horse. I thought this ended up being my top pick, and I was a little hesitant. I ended up going pretty deep here, specifically because of that outside draw. But this was one of those that I thought you almost had to use. Love the ride by Saez. Thought he did a great job of getting this horse out and getting it going. I was hoping this was the fastest horse, but I wasn't sure. And this is how you can really overcome that 12 post. Just be really fast. I mean, and that's what you see consistently at Gulfstream Park, is that if you're hung outside and you are not really slow or really fast, you're in a lot of trouble. Because if you're really slow, you just go to the back. If you're really fast, you go to the front. You want to be at the front of the pack. So obviously fast is better than slow in this case. And that's exactly what Win From Within did. I'm excited about seeing what this horse can do in the future, but I'm also going to just tap the brakes a little bit, because we saw a lot of horses go gate to wire on this Gulfstream Park turf this weekend. So speed was clearly favoring on the turf. I mean, you had a couple horses that I liked early in the card. You also had a 20-1 or 30-1 shot that won on Sunday that went wire to wire. One of the next race we're talking about is going to be a wire to wire winner. So a lot of horses winning up front. So grain of salt there. Anything you want to add on the 12 Win From Within?
No, just that as soon as he got to the lead and got that easy, the lone lead going into the turn, I knew he was going to win right there. And I texted you. I said, what do you think was less likely to happen after the race was over? I said that he would clear easily, or that once he did, he'd get away with 25-1 for his opening fraction. And so it's usually what happens in these races when you got that short run to the turn, and you got a far outside horse, they get hustled, and they probably go, I was expecting 22.5, 23, because you have to go really fast with the horse to make sure you clear everybody and get that lead. So when it came up 25-1, I was like, are the fractions right? And then afterwards I saw, no, the fractions looked like they were right. So I poo on a lot of this field for just letting him get away with it. But I know that we're both excited to talk about the horse that ended up finishing 4th, was coming from out of the clouds. So I'm excited to talk about that horse in a minute too.
Yeah. And we talked about this on the show where I even was kind of pumping up Please the Pharaoh, the one horse on the inside, for possibly being the speed, because it was adding blinkers and second time out. Clearly, there was not a lot of speed in this race, and that played out on paper, where the best horse ended up being able to get to the lead from that outside post, get the job done from that draw. Yeah, I mean, the horse I'm most excited coming out of this, and I'm hoping that we get a price back, is El Socio. I played it, you played it. The horse missed the break, took a couple bad steps, was flying into what I believe was a pace that was very, very tough to close into. De La Cerda, this is a horse he bought out of Zayat Stables out of the bankruptcy. De La Cerda, when he owns the horse and trains it and puts it on one of these type of days, generally it's a good horse. In this case, I think he just caught a bad break. And if not, I think it would have been tough to beat the 12. But I think it would have been possible for the 10, depending on, and this was a first-time starter, so we don't really know the running style, depending on what running style he wanted. If this horse wanted to stalk and go, he would have ended up with a perfect trip right at the outside of the 12, because no one else was showing any type of pace.
And he's we talked about on the show that Bodemeister, 13% overall as a turf sire, does plenty well, so we had no issue there. And we were, at least for me, I think you might have joined me with it, a big reason I liked El Socio is because we looked at this field and we're like, where the hell's the pace? There really isn't a lot of pace in this field. I was like, well, Jaramillo's on him. Jaramillo will probably send him. And so, again, back to what you're saying, Mike, is that you don't know maybe this horse does want to run a little bit better next time. So even when you're handicapping, try to remember with El Socio, if it looks like there's a lot of speed in the race and the setup for a closer, or looks like there's no speed, remember that, because El Socio is probably going to be pretty good. And the fact that he got fourth at 35-1, I don't know if you get 35-1, but you probably get double-digit odds on him.
Yeah, I'm hoping you get 15-20-1. Unfortunately, I know I wasn't the only one who was mentioning. I mean, we were both on the horse pre-race. I know more than one person mentioned the trip on Twitter, so I have a feeling you're going to get a couple people paying attention to how that turned out. But it's definitely one that I'll be looking at coming out next time. And you mentioned this on the show Thursday. Bob and Jackie's a half to Bob and Jackie as well, who's a horse that generally shows a little bit more speed. So you'd think there's also some speed bred into the family being out of the same mare. So excited to see what El Socio does next time out.
And so, getting back to what Mike is talking about, one thing that you did with, we tried to teach you guys some stuff on here. For him to have closed into that pace, it's not just based off what the fractions were and internally. Look at the chart. You had Win From Within, Go Gate to Wire, Floriform, which is a horse that I really liked, and for a second thought he might get there. He ends up being a second the whole way. This is Crew Dragon was fifth, fourth, third, pretty much right there. So for him to come flying like that when everyone else who was speed pretty much kind of ran in place there, that's another reason you really got to look at this stuff after the race and think about what to take moving forward. And that's what we're harping on here with El Socio.
Yep. Yeah. You look at the bottom of the chart, everyone who was in 10th, 12th at the quarter mile, half mile point, that's where they ended up. I mean, they were betting that back half of the field. The only horse that really dropped out was Command Control. Everybody else was essentially right where they started. And El Socio was the opposite. 12th at the half mile, or 12th at the quarter mile point, 10th at the half mile point, ends up fourth and was flying.
That was a really nice Beyer improvement there too with that Winward from them. His best was 64. He gets an 81. Finally gets on turf, finally gets to route. Only an 81 Beyer.
And gets the trip of a lifetime too. So I mean, everything kind of worked out for the son of Into Mischief.
Well, speaking of trips of a lifetime, let's move on to the race 9 here. Con Lima, baby, Gate to Wire in the Ginger Brew Stakes at Gulfstream Park. Not a lot of surprise here, especially when you saw what happened in the race prior on the turf. Lots of speed. Mike talked about it. We both really like Con Lima. I was really mad that Oyster Box, the rail horse, scratched, so much so that I refused to go back and handicap this a second time and play a ticket. I just said, screw it. I almost singled that horse. If she's not in it, I don't want any part of this race. So if you stuck with it and you used Con Lima, especially if you singled her, congrats to you. What did you think?
Great win by Con Lima. Was able to get the trip. I think that this is one of those pace makes the race type races where Con Lima was lone speed, was able to get out there by herself and just keep going. I think it really is that simple here. I don't know if too much to unpack. I probably would play against Con Lima next time out if there's any type of pace pressure. I think that's where the value is here. And I'm going to give the 7 Designer Ready another shot. I thought this horse ran okay. For first time down in the U.S. after being up in Woodbine. I was really impressed with that Woodbine effort, so I was pretty high on this horse coming in here. Thought the horse ran a pretty good race, and just coming from last or 7th place in this field is just really tough when you have a horse that's loose on the lead. This is another example where you have a couple horses that kind of close a little bit, but I think that's more of the quality versus the last race where there's all first-time starters, so you're not going to see the same level or same performances. But Con Lima gets the job done, puts away Honey Pants and Designer Ready, which is the other two we talked about on the show. And yeah, I mean, coming out of this, I'm probably fading Con Lima, and I'm probably playing Designer Ready.
And it's worth noting with Designer Ready, if they, I think they're one I keep routing because she debuted going to Mount 16th. But at Woodbine, a Mount 16th is still one turn. That's their turf course is basically Belmont's dirt course. So the fact that she was stretching out for the first time here, I think this was better. The big concern for me regarding Designer Ready and why I ultimately went too deep with the original ticket and not using her is because she broke pretty poorly, and I wasn't quite sure that there weren't any gate works. And I was like, well, maybe Barbara Minshaw thinks it's fine, but without any gate works, I'm like, we'll take a wait and see. It wasn't worth getting too expensive for me. But Luis Saez is a great gate jockey. It seemed like she got out of the gate a little bit better. So for the third start, do you think this is fine? Are you worried about her getting out of the gate a little slowly again or not?
I didn't think that it was impactful on the race for her. I thought that she got out okay and she got into a position where I think that she wants to be. I think she just ran into a situation where, Michael brings up the ride on IRAD and asked if he hopped off the wrong horse. I think this was a situation where you didn't have any pace to push Con Lima unless Honey Pants wanted to do it herself. And so you got in this situation where it's, okay, do we want to be the one who grinds down the speed and then hope to hold, or do we want to be the one trying to chase him down? And I think the decision was to let Conlima go, and based on the way the turf was playing and the ride Paco got in the fractions, Conlima was just awfully tough to catch. I think it's really that simple. It's, one of the reasons why, like I said, I'd be looking to fade Conlima next time out, because this was just the perfect type of setup, and you had some pretty decent horses chasing this one home. So I have a feeling there's going to be some people who like Conlima quite a bit moving forward. It's going to be a good opportunity to bet against a shorter price.
You know how I knew Conlima was going to win? Paco Lopez almost fell off the horse because he was looking all over. He was trying to figure out where the hell Honey Pants was, because he's coming off the turn. Nobody's close to him, and he can't hear anybody. He's looking. He's like, where the hell is everybody? Where is that horse at? And then he turned so far, like, because he peaked here, and then he turned so sharply here as the horse straightened, he almost went off. And I was like, that would have been the greatest. I mean, not great for your ticket, but I just would think that would have been amazing if Paco Lopez, so confident, peeking around, loses his balance and goes flying off the freaking horse.
Would have been interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah. I'm happy that at least I identified Honey Pants as a very vulnerable favorite, and I was very much against her. She never made my original ticket. I wouldn't have put her back on, probably looking at this race again. I probably would have gone with Designer Ready. To go with Conlima. So I'm at least happy that I identified Honey Pants as a vulnerable favorite. You weren't that high on her either, so we at least got that part right, and move on to the next race, right?
Yep, let's do it.
Perfect. All right, race 10. This is the Mucho Macho Man Stakes. This is a race that I don't really think we need to talk about because, was there anybody good in here? No, definitely no horses worth taking with your second round pick in the Fantasy League draft. But hey, if you drafted Mucho Sebek or you bet him at even money, congrats. He got the job done. Next race? Yeah. No.
Yeah, I mean, this was just a mess, man. Like we picked Easy Time. Although I'm gonna just say I wasn't in the room for that pick.
This is very true. This is very true.
I like this horse too. I mean, obviously I put this horse on top and said you could try and single it at 12-1. So that didn't turn out very well. Luckily, I went too deep, and the other horse I used was Musa Sebek, who was clearly the class of the field, and that really is what got the job done here. This was anything but impressive, I would say. Really a grinding kind of victory where Musa Sebek just was able to get by horses that wasn't as good as him. So I'm not overly impressed with Sebek. Not interested in playing this horse back in the Fountain of Youth. Not interested in playing this horse in the Florida Derby. I'll be interested to see where they end up putting this horse from here. I think you might actually see this horse go back to turf. Just because you're not winning the Derby with this horse. And so I'm not really sure why you're going to put this horse back in over its head. So be interesting coming out of here. Awesome. Jerry ran an okay race, but kind of gave it up toward the end. Interested to see what this horse does when it gets back to sprinting. Yeah, an Easy Time, just a wild disappointment. Not really sure what happened. Just didn't go. And that's a problem in horse racing. You kind of need to kick when you're going after it.
Yeah, Easy Time, like going into the turn, I think I could see just the horse just literally just threw out the anchor and said, nope, I'm done. I'm good. Yeah. I don't need to call. I don't know what happened with him either. He was running without Lasix. That was my only guess. And this is the shitty thing about what's happening with the Lasix in some things, but not here. But it's going to be really confusing as handicappers for a long time. So I don't know if the lack of Lasix, if maybe that was it. I didn't really hear anything about it. Either way, not a great race for Easy Time. Not a great race. When
the notes say Easy Time had brief speed too wide. That was it. Nothing else. Game over. Like not even, struggled, faded, nothing. We're giving you 5 words and we are moving on. That's how irrelevant this race was from you.
Yeah, I caught that exactly when I was writing the recap for the website, and I was like, I was just curious what they wrote for Easy Time. They did that, and I was like, that's worse than saying he's a donkey.
Yeah, right. That's just. You are not worth the ink. This is being used to print this.
Indifference is so much worse than negativity. Indifference to that, whatever. I'm like, oh, that hurt right here.
So yeah, I mean, I'm looking over this race. There's not really anyone I want out of here. I mean, this was just not a great race when you actually see what came back, and I guess you could. I mean, this kind of flatters Jackie's Warrior, as the horses that beat it were pretty far back, but that was in the hopeful, and that the 1-2 horses came out of the hopeful from this. So again, the Saratoga form shows up pretty good, but other than that, I mean, there's really not much I want to take out of this race except if Musa Sebek goes on the dirt, bet against.
Yeah, and I used him in the ticket too, just because for what you said. This was the class of the field, and I've gotten burned enough times. I'm starting to learn a little bit from my own show here,
Good
from
man.
my own mistakes. Just go ahead and go with the class sometimes. The one horse that was interesting to me was Awesome Jerry. Before we move on, I used this horse. You went too deep using our Easy Time and Mutasabec. I added Awesome Jerry to it. Set the pace, ends up fading to third behind Papitu, who neither one of us used. At this level, meaning like the non-graded stakes facing his own kind, 3-year-olds, I don't think this is a bad horse. I think the fact that Irad jumped aboard was a sign of faith here. This is easily, probably the best jock that's been aboard him. He and Saffie Joseph are almost 50% when they're together, so you know that Saffie Joseph is going to keep running him. But I don't think that I want this horse routing. The way that he kind of quit a little bit, I think this one-turn mile is a good spot for him. What do you think?
Yeah, I would even say the one-turn mile might be a stretch because if you look at what this horse did when it was sprinting, going 5, 6, 6.5, and 7, it was never in the lead. It was able to stalk and come from off the pace, but when it runs that same type of early fractions going a mile, you end up in the lead, and that's not necessarily where I think this horse wanted to be. I might pull blinkers off, to be honest. I think that might be an issue. So it'll be interesting to see if we go back to no blinkers next time out. First 4 races of this horse's career, we didn't have blinkers. So there's a couple things that I think are interesting. When I mentioned this horse, my reason I didn't love it was the 2 times that this horse ran big were with Lasix and at Gulfstream Park West. That is still a concern for me because both of those races are still problems here. So we'll see if this horse can get back to it over the Gulfstream Park dirt next time out, which is where I assume it'll be. Be interesting to see if we are back to Lasix and if we are without blinkers. I think we're officially over the Derby trail for this horse, though.
Yeah, well, hey, at least we didn't draft that horse, right?
Yeah.
You want to know what? I'll let you in a little bit. So Mike had to depart for a minute. He had father duties, and so I had to make the second round pick. And all the horses that I was confident, I was like, out of this group, someone's going to make it there, and none of them made it to the second round, or at least to where we were picking. And it was between Easy Time, and I was like, well, Mutasabec, but our big concern was like, we don't know what freaking surf he's going to be. I don't want to draft him, and then Pletcher's like, and we're going to the Belmont Derby. I'm like, great, that was worth a second round pick. Looking back, I kind of wish I'd just done that.
We'd
have 5 points.
Yeah.
Oh boy, let's move on to the fourth and final leg, the late pick 4 sequence, race 11 on the card. This was a $35,000 beaten claimers, which I don't understand. Why do they call them beaten claimers? That's just like adding insult to injury. Like, these are claimers who've beaten a lot. Anyways.
I've never seen an undefeated horse in a claimer. This is the undefeated claimer division.
That's true. I mean, I guess that's true. It's just like it's like saying, hey, you guys are slow and you've been beaten a lot. Yeah. Okay, thanks. We appreciate it.
Anyways, saying you're in the NFC East.
Oof. $35,000 tag, mount the 16th on the main course. Light Fury ends up getting the job done here. What'd you think about Light Fury, the 5-horse?
Really happy that Light Fury won the Bob here because the 6 was the last off my ticket on the show, and man, it would have sucked if that 6 got home because that would not have been the reason I wanted him wanted to lose a ticket. But yeah, I thought Light Fury was a pretty solid, pretty interesting horse here when you look back at it. They had consistently been trying to get this horse onto turf when it was in the Larry Pilati barn. Now you see this horse get onto the turf at Gulfstream Park first time out for the Spats barn, wins. Comes back here. This horse is now, ironically, undefeated on turf, 3 for 3 in this beaten claimers level. So I think that this was a good race from a horse that was logical that you got at a price. I mean, the 15-1 morning line obviously didn't hold up, but we still got about 8-1, which isn't so bad. And so it was nice to get Light Fury home here. And to me, this is just one of those races where, again, a lot of the horses that I liked didn't have, like we talked about Go Poke the Bear, who was one of my 2 must uses in this race. How this is kind of one of those faulty horses where the best buyers are coming out of races which are not fully accurate because they're stakes races or graded stakes races. So those buyers are kind of what I call in the show quite a bit false buyers, where the whole other horses in the race created the buyer for him, not that actual horse. And so you saw the regression here from Go Poke the Bear back to those numbers, which allowed someone else to kind of step up and win. And luckily, the 5-horse was able to get the job done here at 8-1 to close the ticket out.
I'll give you props because you did pick him, and you said the buyer, because my concern was the buyer speed figures were trash. He gets a 78 on the turf, but still that 78 wasn't going to match up really well in this group. And so I said that's why I'm not using him. And you said, well, listen, I think he's going to go gate to wire. And how do you beat a level that you're not supposed to win at? You go gate to wire, and someone lets you have it. didn't go gate to wire, didn't even actually get close to the lead early. Were you a little surprised by whether the tactic, or I can't remember if he broke that? He did break a step slow, so I guess maybe that's why he was farther back than usual.
I think that this was actually, and I've talked about Miguel Vasquez as well. This is a really heady ride. They kind of went pretty quick here early. When you kind of watch it, I don't see the internal fractions listed here, but I remember thinking they're flying a little bit. And if you look at where the pace ended up, that kind of backs that up. You can see that the Street Copper, who set the pace, ends up fading back to 10th. The horse that was running second early ends up fading back to 11th, and Fielder, and they were out there flying. They were winging it out there.
Yeah.
And so when you see that in front of you, even when you have a speed horse, you kind of have to make sure you take control of it. And that early pace probably cost Blameless the race, who sat in third right behind those two horses and had a little bit too much used up. And the 5 horse was able to come through and get the job done. This was definitely a step up in buyer for the 5. Second time in the barn, second time over turf are reasons you can see that type of improvement, but this was even a little bit bigger of a jump than I thought. I also was just not in love with some of the favorites in here, and I thought that was the other reason why you can end up on a horse like Fury. But the 85 buyer was it was a surprise. I did not expect an 85 coming out of the 5 horse, I'll be honest.
Hey, listen, all that matters is that you correctly guessed the 4 winners in a row, and boom, you gave out the pick 4 ticket, and we were able to celebrate with some fans.
I don't know how I feel about guessed, but okay.
Sorry, that does take away. My apologies. You correctly predicted. There is a negative connotation with guest in this situation. You're correct.
Oh, okay. You can't see my dartboard back there, right?
Listen, I guessed poorly. How about that? You predicted correctly, and I guessed poorly. All right, that's enough from Gulfstream. Let's go talk about some fun horses that were running in my current state, California. Let's take a look at race 8 at Sandy's card on Saturday, January 2nd. This was the $100,000 Sham Stakes. It's a grade 3 race. Top 4 finishers get Kentucky Derby points on a 10-4, 2-1 basis. Bob Baffert goes 1-2 here with Life is Good, Medina Spirit. No surprise here with Life is Good. This is a horse that we saw his debut. We knew this is probably going to be the number 1 overall draft pick in the Fantasy League. He was. My question for you, there was a lot of chatter on Twitter, Mike, because he had a 4-length lead. You see if you're watching the screen. He had a 4-length lead at one point, and then Medina Spirit, his Bob Baffert stablemate, comes flying, almost catches him. Life is Good holds on to win by 3/4 of a length, but it wasn't that 10-length blowout that we were used to seeing from Authentic, from Charlatan, from Justify in these early prep races. So was the horse getting leg weary as a son of Into Mischief, or are you going to believe, like Mike Smith was saying, he was just, I'm paraphrasing, he was dicking around and watching himself in the infield on the monitor. Like, that's what Mike Smith said. He said, I just had to, put the whip in front of his eyes a couple of times to remember, no, you need to keep running.
Keep running, buddy.
Where do you land here?
I mean, if I'm being honest, I just hate I'm in this situation again. I have another Bob Baffert,
yes,
mile and a quarter Into Mischief, where everything in the world tells me that Into Mischief shouldn't be able to get a mile and a quarter consistently unless it's like a superstar horse, which Authentic kind of turned out to be. So let's grain of salt there. But this horse should have some distance limitations. So it's not shocking that you see this when the horse starts to stretch out. However, we've seen horses that show distant limitations be able to come back pretty good for Tough Luck Bob. So Life is Good. I think was clearly the best horse in this race. At a mile and a quarter, I need to see more. That's kind of I'm not going to take too much out of this. His stride was shortening up a little bit. I'm not sure why. Maybe Mike Smith is right. He was looking at the infield. Maybe he can't get the distance. I think we'll find out for sure in a couple starts. Then we'll be able to make a better judgment. I can tell you he probably is the best 3-year-old right now in California, though. That's I'm pretty certain about that one. So you're going to get a short price on this horse. He's going to make you look dumb for trying to beat him next time out. So just, maybe pass on that sequence.
I was just going to say, we need to remember this when he shows back up in whatever the hell next race he goes to. We need to remember and then just say, we're not doing that on this show. I don't care if it's the Arkansas Derby. We are not covering this freaking, I mean, this horse was compared to Authentic, a little bit of recency bias because it's just happened a few months ago, really, with Authentic. But
that and there's no other Into Mischief that's 1 1/4 miles on the dirt. So the other 2 reasons you're comparing them.
I think that he's a lot like Authentic in the sense that he had a short maiden special weight win that had a lot of people abuzz, and then he goes second start, stretches out for the Sham. He didn't look as flashy, but if you look at those buyer speed figures, 91 for that debut, 101 for winning the Sham Stakes. This is a legit horse. I do want to see what happens when he faces more than a 5-horse field and doesn't get such an easy lead like he did. But for me personally, I thought that he very much backed up what we saw in his debut. And again, I don't want anything to do with this horse like from our show betting moving forward. Until we get to the Kentucky Derby, I don't ever want to talk about this horse on a preview show.
Well, it'd be interesting if the Derby is the first Saturday in May. Like that means you have what, 6 months, 7 months less of progression through the 3-year-old season for a horse that may have distance struggles to be able to try and get that distance, which does make a big difference. 6 months is a lot of muscle that you can put on a horse, especially at the 3-year-old season. So that's something I think you have to at least take into account as well, is that we're running the race 6 months earlier at that distance, not late in the fall of the 3-year-old season.
Well, and to your point, Baffert last year, people kept saying, why is Authentic improving so much? And Baffert's explanation was that this is a May foal. He's a late foal. Usually they're out in like February, March. This horse is still developing and learning, and God damn it, it looks like he was probably right about it. Well, life is good as an April foal. It's just 1 month early. He's still a little later in the season, in the breeding season. So I would expect to see improvement. The fact that he's not going to be officially 3 until Arkansas Derby time makes you go, okay, it's interesting. But that I think also lends to there's going to be some more progression. Will it be enough to time it for the first Saturday in May? And that's where you're going with this.
Yep. Yeah. So I mean, this is probably a horse that I am going to end up fading at the Derby, and it'll cost me. So let's just avoid Life is Good for a while. How about that?
That's fine. Hey, that's perfectly fine with me. Let's go and talk about. Screw it. We'll stay at Santa Anita. We'll move to Sunday, January 3rd. We're going to talk about the Santa Ynez Stakes, which is the Kentucky Oaks Prep race, the first one of the year at Santa Anita. This is a 7-furlong dirt race. While I'm waiting for the page to load here, let's see. Bob Baffert had 4 of the 7 horses that were entered. He ends up scratching Varda, who Varda's not a sprinter, so it was a good, smart idea. I think Varda was mostly entered just to make sure the race went off. Ends up winning with Calypso, the 4-5 favorite. She looked good. I think the biggest surprise to me, Mike, is Exotic West, a horse that we talked about a lot after her debut win. She looked great. She was 6th. She was last the whole time. She got jostled around a lot in the middle. There was a lot of funky things that happened, and so I'm willing to forgive her a little bit. The fact that she never really ran is a little concerning, but talk to me what you thought about the Santa Ynez.
I didn't take too much out of it. I agree with you. Exotic West didn't get the best trip in the world here, so maybe you kind of just take a little bit of grain of salt. It doesn't feel like that Cedillo was exactly trying everything he could down the lane once the issues happened on the backstretch. So I'm going to have kind of a grain of salt on Exotic West, and maybe we can get a little bit better of a price next time out because, we were both on this horse in the debut. Horse looked really good. This was a surprisingly, sometimes efforts are too bad to believe. This almost feels like a too bad to believe type effort in this spot. So I'd be interested to see when we see this horse next and where. But I'm probably going to play Exotic West back because these are the type of races I like to play back off of when it's a talented horse who has either a jockey fall off or finishes last or is pulled up but is okay. Those to me are good shots at getting a price next time out. Calypso just was the best horse in this race. I think that's really the easiest way to put it. Rosario was able to get this horse in the lead and be able to just send, go, and the horse able to get the job done.
I like that this horse right here, Frosteria, finished second. Because you know who Frosteria has finished second to? Well, pretty much everybody, because that's all she does. She's still a maiden. But last time out, finished second to Moonlight Doro, who's targeting the shit, and I just forgot it when I flubbed. The Las Virgenes, I think it is. Whatever it is, the first route dirt Kentucky Oaks Prep race at Sandy. It's going to be early February. So Frosteria getting second looked pretty good here. To me, that backs up that Moonlight Doro is going to win the Kentucky Oaks. Move on. That's all. No, I think it definitely flatters Moonlight Doro is my point here.
And I agree with you. I'm going to go back to the Bafferts because I have something else I want to talk about there.
Sure. Yeah,
in your opinion,
yes.
So Cedillo rode all 3 of the Bafferts going into this race and chose Exotic West. We assume chose Exotic West. Do you believe that shows that there is more in that horse? Is that a reason why you would consider playing back? Because the last 3 races for Frosteria, Cedillo was up. The last 2 for Calypso, Cedillo was up. And he ends up riding Exotic West in this spot. I mean, to me, that actually is a vote of confidence for Exotic West. What say you, Magic?
First of all, I say hats off to you for freaking noticing that. I didn't even catch that. That's pretty. That's great sleuthing on your end there. That is really interesting. Then, of course, he didn't ride Varda because the only person who's ever been on Varda is Drayden Van Dyke. That's his horse. Nobody touches. But that is really interesting. I think that is another vote. I mean, I already was going to scratch this off, like you said. because I remember that win. By the way, Empire House, who you played in that race, almost beat her, came back to break her maiden pretty nicely. So I think that's definitely a vote of confidence. I would not be surprised one bit to see Exotic West show up against Moonlight Doro, because being out of hard spun, or by hard spun out of a Broken Vow mare, there's a lot of distance capability there. And so I think that we'll see her stretch out. And especially if she gets a nicer draw where she's not between horses, they're just going to do this to her the whole race. I think that that's a great horse to use moving forward. What do you think?
I'm probably going to be on. I'm talking myself into Exotic West before the PPs are even out, or we even have a clue where she's going next time. I'm already I've already singled her in my head next time she's out.
Unless she faces Moonlight Doro, then she is a great pick to finish second.
Yeah, that is true. And Michael brings up the point in the chat. Yeah, maybe Cedillo made a bad choice. Totally possible, but he has more information than I do. So that's why I'm generally. And the other thing, we don't know if Cedillo made the choice. Like a lot of times jockeys commit to a horse and then find out other horses are in there. Maybe Baffert chose a couple others later. But in this situation, it seems like Baffert would have said to him, hey, I'm running all three of these horses. Do you want to be on any of them? You know what I mean? I don't feel like this is one of those situations where he's like, okay, hey, do you want to ride this horse? And then he enters the other two and finds jockeys for them. That just doesn't make a ton of sense to me.
Well, it's also his agent is really smart, and the agents know as well as the trainers where horses are going, who's doing what. Yeah. I mean, I could sit here and say, well, I could see why Joel Rosario got to ride Calypso because he's got good relationship with the owners, but I'm kind of with you. I think that the agent knew, and the agent wanted to put Cedillo on Exotic West. So listen, we're going to use her moving forward. So there's not a lot to talk about. Were there any other races out of that, any other horses out of that race that interested you?
No, not really. I mean, I think Calypso's a pretty good horse, but I think that I'm also not going to be overly excited about playing that horse back. And it's one of those horses where I'm, maybe she's going to be in the Philly Mare Sprint, the Breeders' Cup, something like that. Long term, that's the goal for this type of horse, and it's probably one that I'm going to try and beat if she does end up there.
Interesting in the chat too. A couple people thinking that maybe it wasn't his choice. I don't. Who knows? It's fun to speculate about. This is we're two talking heads. This is what we're supposed to do. Is just try and drum up some discussion points. Speaking of horses that maybe not that impressive looking. Let's go to Aqueduct on Friday. January 1st, New Year's Day. Hope everybody had a great New Year's celebration. Capo Kane gets the win, gate to wire in the Jerome Stakes, the very first Kentucky Derby prep race. This race had absolutely zero bearing on the Triple Crown Fantasy League because nobody liked any of these horses going into this race. And I'll be honest, I don't think we really liked those horses that much coming out of this. But Capo Kane with a 6 1/4 length victory, only an 84 Beyer speed figure, but the trainer has already said that they're moving him on to the Withers Stakes. That is the next target. So I don't know. It's not like easy times going to the Withers. Hell, maybe we drop him and draft Capo Kane. What did you think about the Jerome?
Just further implants in my mind that I should not be playing any horses out of Aqueduct Stakes races in any real spots. This is a little bit of a mess. I mean, if you look at the internal fractions, Capo Kane was the only horse who ran sub 26 seconds in the final quarter mile. 26. And we had a 41 in this field. So that happened. It's just not a great race, right? I mean, this horse went wire to wire, but never did it going fast. I mean, that's the thing. We were talking about 23-3 opening quarter. Internal fractions were 23-3, 24-2, 24-4, 25-2. It's not even, it's just they just got slower, and this was the fastest of the slow horses, which is never a good sign. Your favorite in here, Eagle Orb, got a fine trip, nothing wrong with it, just was not able to run this one down. It was significantly worse.
Swill was the biggest disappointment. I know that the blinkers off guys love Swill. They had heard last summer because they're good with the Brad Cox barn and Potential Strike Racing, who Cohen's horse. They heard Swill was going to be this big monster, and it didn't he was turning out to be anything like a Derby horse. I believe he's by money, so I don't think he had much chance there to begin with. But this was, you would think, doing a 1-turn mile this early in the year, this should have been what he had. It was good and be good at, but he was bet down to 7-5 favoritism, and Brad Cox already had him mapped out to go to Saudi Arabia for the Saudi Sprint Cup, I think it is. The Saudi Derby. It's a 1-turn mile there. So he was all set to go out to Saudi Arabia. I think all those plans are scrapped, and we kind of go back to square one and maybe 6 furlongs for this horse, 6-7 furlongs tops. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any connections in the Brad Cox barn, so I did not know this horse was hyped. And you watch You watch some of the races. You ran a pretty bummer of a maiden special weight at Saratoga. Went to Churchill, where you find a little bit easier field. Was able to get the job done, and then it shows up in a stakes race at Churchill and gets beat pretty handily by Keep Me in Mind. To me, this is one of those horses where not really sure we know what's the best of this horse is yet. or really how deep this talent goes. I mean, okay, Brad Cox was high on this horse, but we're talking about a career best 76 buyer, and that was going 7 furlongs against maidens at Churchill. So, I mean, I think we got a lot to prove here before we can talk about any type of stakes races for this horse moving forward.
Yeah, maybe let's maybe not do that.
Yeah,
I want to give a shout out to his trainer Harold Weiner. It was a great story in the Naira press release about this guy. So he picked out Capo Kane. Let me scroll down here. Picked him out for $26,000. Is a son of Street Sense who stands for 75 out of a hard spun mare. So there's good breeding here. Picks him out for 26 grand and is able to do what he does with him to get this nice stakes race score. I think it was his first win in the Kentucky Derby prep race. This guy also picked out New York Traffic. Like the horse RNA'd for $27,000, they negotiated down for $22,000. Got New York Traffic, and then New York Traffic started doing well, and then he got moved to Saffie Joseph Jr. So if you see Harold Weiner, my point is, if you see him with a kind of a bargain bin younger horse, 6 months from now when they start running, maybe give him a little extra plug, because this guy is good at finding these bargain bin horses and getting them to do something. Whether it's something that was going to make us all excited, I don't know, but at least these horses are paying some really nice bills.
Yeah, well, and this also, like, this is one of those angles that I like, is when you see a trainer ship into a track that they're never at, and it's a stakes race, and they don't really ship that often. I mean, you know, he has a pretty big barn, 205 starts are in 2020, so it's not like this is a small operation, 15%. But you 0 for 1 in stakes races over the last 5 years. So this guy doesn't run horses in places where it's just, he's not taking shots in stakes races, right? So when you see that percentage with 0 for 1 in stakes on the bottom of your DRF form, you got to respect the shots he's taking, because he's taking it with purpose. He's not just sending the horse to lose or just sending the horse to try and run third. So these are the smaller barns when they ship into places like this, and the field isn't a bunch of world beaters. It's a good place to look if you're trying to get value. And 7-1 in this field is a huge value if you're looking at pick 3s, pick 4s, pick 5s, because not a lot of people went too deep here or singled. And this was a horse that not many people were using in those multi-race tickets.
All right, that's going to do it for this episode of the Magic Mike Show. A little shorter today, but there wasn't a whole lot of action to get you excited. And I'll be honest, I looked ahead at this week. There's not a lot to get you excited stakes action-wise, but you know what's exciting is Sam Houston Raceway Park.
There we go. Come on.
Oh, I was building to it. Come on. No, if you missed the start of the show, Mike and I are going to go do we're on Thursday's show, for the preview show at 2:30 Pacific, 5:30 Eastern, right here. We're going to tackle Sam Houston Raceway Park's Saturday late pick 4 sequence. Mike announced that it is part of a mandatory pick 6 payout on Saturday at Sam Houston, and opening day is Friday, so something crazy will be happening with us. I don't know yet. It's usually kind of in the moment. We're like, yeah, let's have fun do that. So plenty to look forward to this week. Not stake stuff, but some really good low takeout tracks that need our supporter back.
Yeah, baby. And we got a nice little maiden special weight to 25K optionals to 10K optionals back to maiden special weight. It's one of those sequences where you got to get all your handicapping hats out of the box. It's one of the reasons I love Sam Houston too. You do have stakes races there. There is some turf that they sprinkle in, but you got to be able to handicap those mid and lower levels. So I'm excited to get back there, and can't wait to kick it off on Friday. And we got hockey, and I got another thing I'm really excited about this weekend that I'm not going to mention that some people probably already know, but actually I'll mention it now just in case you want to try and get in. They have so one of the biggest tournaments online of the whole year is coming up this weekend on horse tourneys. It's called the FOCAL. So it's Gulfstream Park in Santa Anita. Every race, both tracks, mandatory Saturday and Sunday. Its buy-in is $1,500. You can qualify for $118 or do a double qualify for $28 on horse tourneys. They already have eclipsed the $300,000 prize pool. So we're probably talking about $400 to $500K that's going to be up for grabs over the weekend. And I have one entry, and I will have a second or buy my second if I need to. So I'm looking forward to getting in and getting that thing going. But if you want to try and qualify, there's still about 4 days left to be able to do that. And it's a fun tournament because it's 20 plus mandatory races both days. So you got a lot of swings to try and get your numbers up.
I vaguely remember this contest from last year, I think, or if it wasn't this, it was something similar, where it is. It's 2 days, every race at Gulfstream, every race at Santa Anita, and you get done, and you're just like, you get done.
Yeah, this was the first major tournament I played last year. I ended up finishing 12th, so I was pretty happy with that. It was not as big because, man, they do one every year called Surf and Turf, which is Saratoga and Del Mar, and that one's 3,000 buy-in. Maybe it was 2,500 buy-in or $2,000, somewhere around there. And they, because of the pandemic, blew it out. I'm talking over $500,000 prize pool. And so now they have a Triple Crown series where there's going to be 3 of them this year of these big money buy-ins that are 2 tracks every day, every race. And they tied bonuses to it. So there's $1 million if you win 2 of them. There's a $2 million bonus if you win all 3. There's a bonus if you finish in the top 5. There's a points leaderboard where the winner of that gets like $100,000. So they've done a wonderful job of kind of pumping up the different things, the different adages here. And it's showing in the prize pool. You already have over $300,000 and you have a week left where they're going to have more people qualify each week. And to me, the thing that was shocking is you got almost 200,000 in straight buy-ins in August.
Wow.
In spa and surf. So there was people on the day of and the day before just clicking the buy button and dropping in $2,000 into the bucket to see if they can get a big score home. And the winner there got, I want to say it's 253,000, something like that. I finished 6th, and I was fighting for the top 2 for the most part. I don't think I could have gotten the winner with about the last 3 races. Second place got over $90,000, so it's real money you can go after.
Yeah, I remember how well you did in that one. Can I ask you this? Because you're very big in the tournament scene, and you know a lot of the names. I'm sure you recognize a lot of people, even maybe not the big names that even someone like I might know. But do you think there's a good number of people who are in these feeders trying to earn their way in, and then when they don't get it, or maybe they get one and they're like I want a second one? Are there a lot of those people who are just like, I'm doing it whether I qualify for a little bit of money or pay a lot of money? Is there a lot of overlap like that?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I think that there's people that have decided, like when they announced this tournament in August, I knew I was going to have 2 entries because I feel like I have a plus EV against this field with every race mandatory. I think that's a huge part for me personally, is that you have to handicap every race, dirt, turf, claimers, stakes, everything. And I think that's where specifically my abilities can come in, is that I can face a wide range of fields and do pretty well generally. So I'm excited about having that. So for me, it's one of those situations where I think it's plus EV. I'm pretty sure everyone would say the same thing that's dropping the money into the bucket though, right? And no one's going to go in there and say, yeah, I'm just taking a swing. I'm terrible at this and I hope I win. Like I'm feeling if you're hitting the buy button, you think that you're, maybe qualifiers people for sure. Like I'll tell you this much. I thought walking into some of those early tournaments, I wasn't sure if I could win them. And, a year later, I'm pretty confident I can. So it's interesting when you kind of go through that. But I've had some ridiculous success on major days. I mean, I won a Breeders' Cup tournament. I won the Belmont tournament. So under these big days, these big tournaments, I've fared very well in 2020. So hopefully we can keep that rolling into 2021.
Yeah, I'd say you're probably about 3 to 5 to keep the train rolling in 2021.
We'll see. I don't know if we're that low, but we'll see.
Michael, listen, I wasn't going to bring up editor-in-chief. You brought it up, buddy. It's not. I didn't bring this up. Your teammate. Just a quick note on editor-in-chief. Your teammate was sure that I wanted editor-in-chief and Lidstrom, and I think that he wanted to draft them because he thought he was taken away from me. We didn't want either one. No. So thank you for that one, and thank you for bringing that up. And he is slow, but he's also very pretty.
Yeah.
He's very pretty. Not as pretty as the horse behind Mike and I right now, but he's pretty.
Easy, Magic. Easy.
You can follow us on Twitter. I am at Curtis Colored. His at SummerBum18. Number 1, number 8, Corporate Overlords at Racing _. God, I haven't screwed that up once before. At Racing _Dudes. Make sure you go to racing.com. Check out the handicapping products page. Ricky's Rockets. They're coming back. I think Wednesday, Thursday, Friday this week. 8 a.m. I don't know if might be a little too early for me sometimes out here on the West Coast. But 11 a.m. Eastern, it's right here on the Racing Dudes YouTube channel. It usually has someone come on. They go through, preview the day's races. So if you're looking for that day handicapping, it's a really great tool. So go check out Ricky. He's very interactive with the fans. He'd love to answer some of your questions or get your thoughts on stuff. Like I said, a little bit lighter of a stake schedule this week, but Sam Houston's back, so screw it. We don't care. Take all the stakes and just make nothing this weekend. I don't care. Sam Houston's back. Mike's excited. I'm excited. I'm Magic.
And I'm Mike.
We'll see you guys on Thursday, and we'll get some Sam Houston.
The Magic Mike Show, where you hear the experts speak. The Magic Mike Show. Tune into the show every week. The Magic Mike Show. You can trust the show is the bomb because it's being brought to you by RacingDudes.com.